to be here.
Wow, Uade, you're so excited this one. I love it.
Let me put a dampener on what is.
Chibuzor, don't start.
Yeah, just going to the MBS figures for fourth quarter last year. But good morning, Lagos. We're still alive. We're still kicking. You know, some of us are still. We're still alive. And we're still moving now. So
But
let's.
we sold more crude based on the MBS.
That's the only thing we are selling. How much more crude are we selling?
20% increase.
Are we able to hit our targets? What's our KPI? How many percentage?
There was an increase of 20.8%.
What's the percentage of our targets are we saying?
There was an increase of 20.8%.
I love this.
Wade is officially working for the government.
So Uade is giving statistics
I
and
am
figures.
giving you the data according to the MBS.
So it's the viewpoint where you look at the data from, which is fine.
1.3 billion dollars in capital importation.
Why they will look at the glass as half full. I might be looking at the glass. I might be looking at the
No,
glass
you are looking at
empty.
it as half empty.
Definitely half empty.
Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, everybody.
All right. Once again, the WhatsApp number is 0809 444 0981. First headline is coming from Punch. Now, according to the minister, federal government plans 6,000 megawatts to improve power supply. Wade?
Wow. We're still at going to 6,000. This is really interesting because I think it was last week or the week before where the federal government gave the discourse, last warning, kind of saying that they either improved or they were going to revoke their licenses. It's we've been hearing, it's been on this back and forth of revoking the distribution companies' licenses for the last 9 years. But those agreements are quite solid, and if the government is not doing its part, then you don't expect that all things would go seamless in the power sector. Excuse me. 6,000 megawatts. We've been at this since 2013 when the discos were sold, when the Gencos were sold. And everybody continues to ask the question, why 6,000 megawatts? That's basically what the transmission can push through. I know sometimes if you get beyond 5,003, 5,005, it just might collapse. So when the minister says, to improve power supply to 6,000 megawatts, we have generation companies that could do between 12 and 15,000 megawatts. We don't have enough gas. And that's a major issue within the space of power today. It's not that the Gencos don't want to produce, because the more you produce, the more money you make. It's not that the distribution companies don't want to distribute. It's just that how much of the electricity can they get? And because you can't store electricity, these are the challenges that you have. So currently, I guess we're getting back to the 4,000 that we know we used to do. It's been lower than that due to constraints in gas. So when the minister goes and says, we're going to do so much about the generation companies to push them to produce 6,000 megawatts, it's the same old story that we're hearing, that we've been hearing since 2013. Like I've continually said about power, we need to rearrange the focus on power. We've put so much money into the generation part of it, but nobody is really speaking about the people who pay for the power itself from the distribution. Power for me should be an inverted pyramid. We must look at it from the consumer side and how it translates into those who produce it, because if the consumer is not paying, then you can't make any money in the power sector. And these are where I think the major reforms should come in. I know that there was the map that it turned out not working. It kicked off in 2019. It was supposed to be a 5-year plan. This is 2024. I don't know whether we've metered up to, based on the outstanding number of households that needed to be metered. I don't think we've done up to 20% of that, due to several things that transpired after. The pricing that came out at the end of the day did not reflect the fact that 60-70% of these missiles were going to be brought in, and you had to pay import duties, and that became a clog. How do you finance it? Do consumers pay for meters, or do you give them meters and let them pay as they buy power. And if you don't sit down and deal with all these issues from the consumer side, we're just going to be, it will be like the ostrich. Do you understand? We bury our heads and then leave our fat ass out, and so that the hunter can can have dinner for the day. Um, pardon my French, please. And that's the reality. So we must come back to the basics of saying, how do we ensure that consumers pay for electricity? We've gotten electricity so cheap over time. But the reality is, electricity is not cheap.
Okay, so I would like to quickly chip in. So I've had this discussion about power and electricity and the cost of electricity, and I recall when the geometric project came up in Aba, one of the questions I asked was, I hope people can pay for the electricity that they are able to give. And if you think about electricity as a component of people's, so it depends on where you put it in your budget. Is it part of your disposable income, or is it part of your needs for the month? If I have a smaller size of a salary or smaller size of my income to distribute at the end of the month, I'll be able to allocate less to things like electricity, because if I have my top priority will probably be food, shelter, then I'll probably look at my bills like electricity, and I would have less. So one of the challenges in this economy is, for me, and I always tell people, that you need to stimulate the economy for the economy to grow. And this is my own theory, and it's not but that for you to grow the economy, you need to trigger the spending power of the people, because they need to buy products, they need to be able to pay for services, they need to be able to put that money back into that circular flow. The companies can make their money, the government and tax that money. But if people are not productive, are not able to generate income, or the value of their money is losing, the small money they have in their pockets are losing value every second. You're buying something that was 5,007 the week before, now it's 6,006. If that is a necessity, you have less of your money to spend on any other thing else. So how do you pay for electricity? How does the distribution company get its money? How does that feedback in transmission? How does that feedback in generation? Those are all problems we need to solve. So there's no point in having a 200 million size, in quotes, population when your people cannot effectively demand for goods or services. That's why companies are closing down. If our population, it was all about our population, we would not have companies closing down, even with increasing costs. What the companies will do simply will be to pass on that cost to the people, because those people have the ability to pay. But in reality, people do not have the ability to pay, so they have no ability to demand. So those companies have no money, there are no taxes, and so on and so forth. It's a circular flow of income.
All right, well, let us know your thoughts. WhatsApp number 0809
Could I just say something? One last thing
981.
about electricity.
Yes.
When I say electricity is not cheap, then it becomes a necessity and a need. A need in the sense that I would manage how I use my electricity,
So you can plan
and
and
stop
budget.
wasting electricity. So if you look at the geometrics angle that of lighting about for 72 hours, people are telling you that they're turning off their freezers, because even the fridge at 3 degrees centigrade becomes frozen because the light is constant. They've not seen it like that. So you start to manage how you use electricity. It becomes a necessity of, oh, so my food in the freezer, I would, once it's fully frozen, I can turn it off when I go to work and come back, and things like that. So if we don't start to think from that perspective, we can generate the 12,000, and like Chibuzor said, if we can pay, we can pay.
All right, let's go on to WhatsApp. Ajayi says the division of power sector to Gencos, Trancos, and Discos is responsible for the near total collapse of electricity supply in the country. Imagine the power minister mulling to increase the current power supply across the country to 6,000 megawatts when countries in the Middle East consume 180,000. God help us. Why did you have something to say to that?
I don't think so. I just think that you need to understand it's a business. You need to understand the value chain. You need to understand the transaction flow. And if we're not transmitting enough, like I said, the people who pay for electricity is not the discos, it's not the Gencos or the Transco. It's the discos. And the discos get these monies from those who demand electricity and use it. So if I can afford it, I can afford it.
All right, let's go on to the next headline, and it's coming from Vanguard. Pay wage award till new minimum wage comes into force. Tinubu tells governors. Chibuzor?
Okay, so the president has set up the committee to be able to discuss the new minimum wage. I think that committee consists of 37, is it 37 members, thereabout, if I can recall. And they are mulling over what the numbers would be for a new minimum wage, trying to agree it, at the end of the day, I hope they're trying to also agree on which states are going to be able to pay for that, whatever amount they agree on, because it's one thing to agree on, it's another thing to be able to pay for that service. And so they are going through that process, and that process will take time. And I think they have a remit, I think for April or thereabout, where that needs to be ended. I'm not sure the specific days. So what the president is saying basically that, hey guys, we're having this discussion, we are coming together to come to this beautiful agreement. But while we are on this journey and we've not gotten there, you need to keep paying the awards. And what has happened in terms of the awards, what are we saying? The federal government put out some things to try and alleviate the impact of the policies that came on board last year, and some of them translated into additional wages for some, at least in some cases for particular levels of the civil service, in some places across the board, and some other benefits. So what is asking the governors that, see, do not, while we are still on this our process, please keep paying, which is all fair and which we expect to happen. Basically that's that's the long and short of the story. But the president also took time to talk about how nobody in Nigeria should be hungry, because we have the capacity Nigeria has the capacity to feed our people. The use of the word capacity means you have the potential. Nigeria has the potential to be rich. Is Nigeria rich? No. Nigeria has the capacity to feed our people. Is Nigeria able to feed other people? No. Now, when you have capacity, you go through a process to turn that capacity, like potential energy, and move to kinetic energy. You turn that capacity to real value. That is the job of the government. That is the job of government, either to create the environment or actually to do the work. Now the question is, is the government doing that? So he said that, I think he was in Niger State to see what the Niger State government had put together in terms of his agricultural plans, and he was happy about seeing what was on ground. I think the other day he was also in Kebbi to launch the tomato plant, which he also was happy with. It's good to see all these things, and I think some of them, at least on paper, make a lot of sense, and we hope that we'll be able to reap the fruit of some of these things in the future. There's nothing much. If we have a problem, if we have a challenge with feeding our people and agriculture, then we need to put, their strategies, their plans. Nigeria has the resources to do so. I hope that, we'll see less talk in the future, a lot more action, and a lot more results, really. That's what I'm saying. So he talked a lot about even livestock and how we breed livestock. And this is just a side. I was watching a documentary about Japanese beef, and these are some of the most expensive beef in the world. I think it's Wagyu. Yeah, it's that expensive. If you compare it with a cow I saw grazing yesterday on my way home, how much value? And I'm not saying that we should all raise our beef by giving them beer and high level grass so that they grow as big as that. But there is a market for these things to be exported to the rest of the world. If some Nigerians are ordering beef all the way from Japan and Australia, premium price to eat here. I don't want to say the prices before, some those that don't know start asking themselves bad questions about their lives. But if they're able to do that, then there's a market for it internationally. Why are we still giving all our cows exercises by roaming them across the country? And whenever we try and put some sense into it, there is also always a fight back. And I'm not talking about government, I'm talking about some private individuals who are in that business. Look at it, and there's the possibility and the opportunity. The problem is that a lot of these private individuals are more interested in capital outlay to purchase the cows. They're not outlaying any other capital and allowing their cows to graze freely across the nation and giving some peanuts to some guys to just look after the cows for the year and bring them back and make money. That's the problem we need to solve. Rent seeking.
All right.
But if governors or states have not been able to move from 18,000 to 30,000, so I don't know how you want them to pay this.
That's why I always, I keep using the word effective demand.
I just asked.
It's one thing to say that you want to pay 200,000 or 1 million, like our
Chibuzor,
guy.
I just asked. Zibby, let's go.
All right, let's get some messages.
Let's go.
Dasat says, okay, Oladayo says, I'm fully off the grid on solar and I do not run my freezers and any other high energy consuming appliance overnight every time, even though I have the capacity to, because I want to optimize. I agree, we need to see it as a necessity, pay the true value, then we will also be more efficient in our usage. And let's take a quick breather. We'll continue the conversation on the other side. This is Freshly Pressed.
We're having fun today. I think we're having fun today.
No, see,
That's the only way we can survive
for me,
Nigeria.
there are two sides of this story. So,
I watched one. My brother put up
Hi
one.
people, my name is Praise, and if you want
I'll share
good
with
music,
you.
stay tuned to
In
Smoke
Ghana.
98.1.
Heather
Orchestra.
and Landona.
Watching you move,
They
it's
won,
like
the guys won a
listening
case
to
in
a symphony
2012.
of body parts
They're enforcing it now.
directed
They
by
told
a
them
bass
to
string.
move.
When you
The,
walk,
his
it is
police
like
and
watching
soldiers, they
a
were
G
killing
no,
their
class
that's
cows.
what happened in Ghana. So the government
centered
well
by a C
support. They were basically shooting on the cows.
talk,
If you stole in
the
Africa, you
cadence of
shoot
your
the
voice
cow.
Yeah.
is a tenor
So the guys that
There's
said
no-
now that they will give them.
There was no sentiment. There
Yes,
was no
now,
sentiment
they're
around
not
it.
killing the
There was
human
no-
beings, though.
Yes.
It's the cows.
There was no sentiment
That's why
around
we
it.
keep it
So
here.
So
they're
they
not
said, oh,
killing
they
it.
should, but at least they should have given us
This
like
is just
2 to
music.
3 days so
Wait,
that we can move
2012.
from 2012 that they got a
In Nigeria, it's
cut.
quite sentimental because everybody who has a car,
All right.
some guy who has money in his pocket.
Okay, going back on. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. We're looking at the news stories and making the headlines across the country. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to read from you. 0809 440 and 981. Let's look at a few messages and then we'll go on to the next headline. This is from Anthony. Anthony says, I really don't know how we keep talking about consumers not paying for electricity in this country. Everyone knows how efficient our discos are in this regard. They make sure you pay or you're disconnected. We all know how they dole out bills, whether light is available or not. They work with targets, like some policemen allegedly do. Going forward, they should ensure bottlenecks are removed and every consumer metered. The Ghanaians richer than Nigerians. We need subsidy on solar systems to get Nigeria out of the clutches of some of the cabals in this sector. Okay. Tunji says, if we're waiting for the money paid by consumers before we improve electricity supply, we'll remain in the dark ages for eternity. Abbas said, government gives incentives to farmers and even reduces what they pay for fertilizers. But what do our farmers do at the end of the day? They try to smuggle the farm produce out of the country in the name of exports. Nobody cares about the food crisis we have, but they want to make quick money. I hear two exasperated sighs. I'm going to come to you. And when government tries to stop them, we all cry foul and blame the government for stopping people from harming us more.
So I'm a bit at the moment. I'm quite involved in the agricultural side. So a bit. So when I say agriculture, buying some of this stuff. Now, when a farmer spends an entire season doing tubers of yams, right? He's in. Let's imagine a farmer in Zakibiam, smallholder. He does this and he has this bag of yams. You come and you buy the bag of yam in Nigeria for about, if he's lucky, he gets 4,000, 5,000. If he's a middleman, he probably pay less. They put those bags on the truck, go through the bad routes, bring them down to Lagos. Obviously, put all their margins, put their interest, and it feeds Lagos, right? The middleman makes all the money. The man is left with 3,000 or 5,000, which he made for his work during the season. If he multiplies it, maybe did like maybe times 5 or 6 of that, 18,000. He's expected to pay his kids' school fees. Let's assume that the kids are going to school for free. God help him that he gets ill at some point. He's not able to buy drugs now. He's not able to do anything really because how much is 18,000? Even if you are living in the worst rural area, you can afford to eat. The reality is that a lot of the amount of money that the farmers are in the economy like every other one. If you have done a discount on the services you are providing as a person, because that's why you're getting paid, let me know so that I can see if I can take advantage of your service. Farmers will look for real value like every other person. If the guy outside is going to buy his product at 10x, he's not going to think about the government. There's something they taught us in secondary school, I think it was agricultural extension, where government can actually buy off some of these products, give the farmer some value, and it saves the farmer that stress of having to export it out. Yes, the farmers give incentive, the government gives incentives of fertilizers and stuff. It's done in Europe also. But it doesn't mean that you cannot also give them incentives by taking off their stuff and saving them that headache about where to sell it. The cost of living is high for everybody, including the farmer in the village. So let's stop attacking people for meeting basic demand and supply to meet their needs.
All right, let's move on to the next headline. It's coming from Vanguard. JACMA, UK bans foreign health workers, caregivers from bringing families.
So the UK government issued a statement banning international health workers and carers from bringing their dependents to the UK on their work visas. We know what's been going on. The UK is after they left Europe, from Brexit, they've been having challenges in a number of areas in terms of getting people to work. So they focused on trying to get them from the African continent, and all of a sudden it's like as I'm coming to work in the UK, I must come with my dependents. So what they're saying now is it has ended. It would not happen. Even though some of those who have who have benefited from it in the past, you might start to see that some of the family or their dependents are being asked to go back and so on. So it was announced by the Secretary of State that from today, care workers entering the UK on health and care worker visas can no longer bring dependents. It's part of the plan to deliver the bigger cuts in immigration by the UK government, and um, the news also says the 120,000 people arrived last year would no longer be eligible under the new rules, and it added that economic downturn facing the UK is part of the reasons why they need to try and fix this immigration challenge. So really, at the end of the day, if you are planning to go to the UK to go and work, what they're basically telling you is that apply, get the job, go get the work done, and if you need to send more monies home, send more monies home rather than trying to carry your people along with you.
Wow. What does that mean for the right to family life, though?
It just tells you what we need. See, we need you to come and work. It's like when the British were building the empire, they brought the Indian workers from India. That's why you had a lot of them around the world. They brought Chinese to build the rail stations. Also, they didn't care about their families. They don't care about you. For them, as far as they are concerned, you're an item. You're an input into a system of production. You want to turn it to a better life for your people. So I think the message for it is that, see, they don't really care about us. Sort your problems out at home. Unfortunate, sad but true.
All right.
Totally agree with you.
Messages coming through. Yinka says, okay, I'm trying to pull this up. On this 24-hour electricity in Abia, there's no problem. Please, when the bill comes, let's not hear complaints, because we will have a lot to say about this then. Ike Osuji says, please, will it affect those whose dependents have visas already? We don't know. You might need
to
contact the Home Office.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next headline. Daily Trust, Nigeria, first country to receive new meningitis vaccine.
Yippee! So we've received a new. So Nigeria, as usual, has received a batch of vaccines from well-meaning people in the rest of the world. I'm not sure if we paid for it or it came here as free. I do suspect we've paid for it, but hey, needs must. So we got this new stockpile of vaccines, and was delivered by UNICEF and by the Gavi-funded global stockpile. And it's going to be distributed to about 1 million children in 6 local government areas in Jigawa State, Babro, Benenwa, Gagarawa, Gumel, Maigatari, and Sule Tankaka. So the Global Alliance fund the global stockpiles of vaccines against cholera, Ebola, meningitis, and yellow fever, and supports outbreak response in campaigns in lower income countries. So yes, folks, we are a lower income country officially. So they've deployed about over 1 million doses of MEN5, which is what they call the vaccine. Interestingly, this vaccine was produced through a 13-year collaboration between PATH and the Serum Institute of India, and with support from the UK's government's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. Now, I was very emphatic about mentioning the Serum Institute of India because Nigeria, most times we tend to compare ourselves to countries like India. And while we might not, my point of focus is not that we should be where India is today or we should be producing vaccines today. I know we are doing some in some spaces. We have some of our institutes that are working hard to do those things. And there are challenges from funding to infrastructure to all the things that you need to make things done. And we have the manpower, have the people. What I would hope and task governments is that maybe in the next 10, 20 years, 10, 15 years or less, because technology is moving faster than we can think about, we should be setting those targets for ourselves if we have visionary governments. And I do hope, like most people claim, we do have a visionary government. I am hoping that we get to that point where we are not just importing these things from institutes in India, or we are also exporting these things from institutes in Nigeria. So that's my hope as a Nigerian. But yes, meningitis, do we need it? Yes, I remember, I think I got a vaccine for cerebrospinal meningitis when I was a kid. So, my best wishes to everybody that gets it. Like I said, needs must. If we need to get rid of meningitis in this country, then whichever way we do it, either we beg, grovel, we need to do it. If not for ourselves, for the sake of our children and generations to come.
All right, we're moving on to the Guardian. Whitney, Chrisland School violated child protection policy, court told.
So the hearing on the Chrisland issue that the I think it was a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old Whitney that died last year came back to court, and the prosecution witness Jibril Yakubu disclosed during the ongoing trial of the Chrisland School and its staff that there was negligence during the inter-house sports period, and one of the things they said was that the findings showed that the school's preparedness for emergency during the competition was close to none. He explained that the school had just a nurse and there was no ambulance to convey any student to hospital in the case of any emergency. I fortunately have had my kids go through schools. I mean, primary, secondary schools, are now in higher institutions. However, what I have seen, and this I know for free, is the level of preparedness for inter-house sports in Nigeria, many of the Nigerian schools are not very adequate.
Abysmal.
Yeah. Huh?
Abysmal.
Oh well, abysmal, he would say. I would say not very adequate. You don't take children first and foremost out of the confines of their school and take them to a sports complex, and you don't have the necessary security, necessary wards who are ensuring that kids are not moving left, right, and center. Some parents even just come there and they forget the fact that they came to watch their kids do inter-house sports and so on and so forth. You don't prepare by ensuring that you work with a medical institution that would provide the services of a doctor, that would provide, get the ambulance system. And when I say work with a medical institution, not just the provision of a doctor, in case of an emergency, you know where you're taking a child to. Do you understand? A number of times you don't even understand the history of the child, and so on and so forth. I remember growing up and being a sports person. One of the things that was always available was glucose. When you licked the glucose like there was no tomorrow, just to get some strength. And these are the things that and it beats me that we today as parents, we just tend to forget the things that we grew up on, the way that we held into house sports with not just, this was boarding school. We had ambulances from outside being available to carry on just in case that there was an emergency. And we just sit down and everybody wants to do a fanfare. It beats me, and it completely beats me. There was, in my own opinion, I think they were a bit negligent, maybe to a larger extent. I don't know what the courts will say, but that's the reality, and we need to focus on these things. Our kids the school is meant to ensure that they give the same kind of protections that we give to our kids when we're at home.
So I know that we are pressed for time, but I quickly like to chip into what Uade has said. So, I recall going to school. I don't remember any ambulances there. The best we had was first aid, which was done by the students themselves. And I don't remember, I don't know how well good the training was for some of the first aid respondents. But what I would say, I remember the Chrisland issue, and they had to rush them to they tried to put in a primary care health center. One of the complaints of the parents was that the place looked like a slaughter slab, it had lacked, it was not clean, blah, blah, blah. And it speaks more to how we maintain our primary healthcare centers, and less to Chrisland, because even if they were putting the plan together and, near that place, where they would take you to typically should be a primary healthcare center before they start looking for any other thing. So it speaks to how do we manage our public institutions. And like in some way, I would like this case to I like the parents to actually win this case based on this premise. because for me it also needs to roll out. We're not just talking about private institutions and Chrisland. We're talking about the public institutions that take more of the students and people in Lagos and Nigeria. We have to have standards at some point. While he's talking about schools that took some key level of care, I don't think you have that in the public system, or most of the ragtag schools that pass out private schools.
That's today.
All
I went
right.
to public schools.
Really
I went to
quickly,
public school, but-
some weeks ago, NERC had announced that punished discos for overbilling. Is there an update on this? I've been waiting for a prepaid meter, yet to be invoiced, so I can pay, even though I've paid some of the outstanding bills. All right, let's go on. Yinka says, last I checked, there's a law against the export of yam and some other food stuff. What is the issue with customs action on arresting the yams? Yam's not cheap on the streets. How about we flood the market with excess yams to drive down the price? And if you want to export yams,
Who pays for the
maybe.
I really don't understand what you guys talking
who's
about.
working to put that
I don't understand. So I cannot decide I want to export my yam.
If as a private farmer I do not get any subventions from government, I pay my taxes, I do my work. You're saying that hey, I can't
I can't
I have to
export
sell it
yam.
at your prices. I would sell it at my price at premium and see who's going to take it off.
All right, Fabian says, well, health workers have alternatives like Ireland, Canada, Australia, and others. The government should focus on creating an enabling environment for these people. Angel says, when you get a live-in domestic staff, they don't come with members of their family, no matter the level of dependency. There's nothing wrong with the UK taking the position. We're out of time. Thanks for your messages. I can't take them all, unfortunately. Thanks for listening, and special thanks to our analysts this morning, Uade and Chibuzor, for being with us.
Thank you for having us as usual.
Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.
My security guards, they come with their wives, their
stories.
children, and whatever. You have a small thing for them like the king.
In-depth analysis of national current affairs.
Nigerians are Nigeria's biggest challenge.
Freshly pressed on Smooth.
Good morning.
Zibby.
Hi, Chibuzor.
Before we say anything, that
I want to.
How do I stop this?
you're going to be nice.
Oh my
I
god.
don't know why they use the three-letter word.
That was funny.
I did.
Yes, you did. But these slip ups happen every now and then.